As the year of the snake comes to a close, I'm having a lot of thoughts about that, and conversations this week have naturally been coming up with some of the people that I've worked with that are just these uncanny themes of just snake, snake, snake coming up everywhere. And so, as we are moving to closing out the year of the snake and moving into the year of the fire horse, I think it's just some bows being tied on the end cap as we are wrapping this season of my life up, and the transformation energy is being reflected on with gratitude and peace, a sense of stillness, and I want to say necessities for some reason of taking that sacred pause to notice the journey with celebration, reverence, gratitude, all the things. And so, one of the conversations I had with somebody around snakes was inspiring to me, and a good, we were just vibing and flowing back and forth with this energy, good representation of what the year of the snake has been for me in so many different ways. And the person said, I don't really like the bad rep that snakes get. There are so many references about snakes, like snake in the grass, not to be trusted. And I don't feel that way. I think snakes are really trustworthy because they embrace change and growth, and that allows them to stay in this state of presence and authenticity in every now moment. And I thought, what a beautiful way to look at that. The capacity for release, the room for growth, the acceptance of the change, just that's authenticity. Is that not? And I had another conversation with someone else, and we were talking about authenticity as well from a different angle and in interpersonal dynamics. And the notion came up of this block in sense of connection or trust. And when we got to the bottom of it or deeper into it through EMDR, there's this realization that the differences in their individual journeys was being defined by the human programming as untrustworthy and inauthentic. And in reality, inner reality, right? There was a beautiful relinquishing of that narrative and discovery that really authenticity is not about being completely understood or directly matched, or somebody saying, your value is X, my value is X. You see this as ABC, I see that as ABC. And authenticity can look more like, I really appreciate how you view that. And I see you. This is how I view it. And maybe someday I'll be at a different point with this, but here's kind of where I am on the journey. And so instead of that being registered as, hold on, wall up, back up, be careful. You're not safe here to love. You're not safe here to fully lean in and be in your own authenticity. What is happening there is this contradictory energy where this person now moved out of alignment with their truth, because if they don't feel safe to love, that's pretty challenging to maintain a place of sacred open heart energy where your divine essence is flowing in an unfiltered way, because the signal is saying not safe to be seen here, not safe to fully be yourself, because they might not have matching capacity. And instead of looking at it in a way where your human mind needs to understand, analyze, and dictate that, let's feel it. And when we felt into it, we can see the ability for this person to speak their truth and to move with that while being in this place of sacred connection with you. That is more trustworthy than your mind's or your human programming's faulty belief that any perceived discrepancy is an indication that you need to play it small and wall up. So now we've accidentally created the situation where that person may be functioning more in authenticity, and we are the one who's backed away from authenticity. It's your relationship to yourself and healing any spaces from our past experiences that are keeping us attached to the programming that we've already had inputted into our human brain. Those are the things that prevent us from functioning in alignment. Those are the places that are truly creating vibrations that are being perceived by our selves as we are not safe to love. When you are fully in union with yourself and all the spaces are integrated, authenticity is yours. Love is yours. This is your energy. When you come from that place, you are safe to love because of who you are. You're safe to love because of who you are, not because of who other people are or are not. And this is the energy of the snake, which I don't just see as a shedding, but the release that allows us to come home more fully. When I was speaking to my spirit team and reflecting on this year personally for myself, I said, I wonder what would be one word to sum up 2025 for me. And the word was homecoming. And then immediately after, I thought, and what will be the word for 2026? And that word was creation. And that was given by spirit. I thought, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And there's so many different things just beautifully dovetailing and weaving together at the perfect right time here for me, that are underlying, bolding, and just holding in sacred hands this notion as my body feels into it. The sense of homecoming is, this is the time in my life that I feel I have cleared out those gaps and come to a place of a depth of worthiness and just home inside of my own human vessel. My nervous system beginning to come to a place of the parasympathetic, the peaceful set point, instead of being in the sympathetic, hypervigilant, chronically on guard, always looking to be, paying too much attention to my external reality. And now my inner world, the places in which my resonance lives, the ability to create requires safety and peace in our central nervous system. The release, the shedding of the stories that we have become too attached to about the world, about ourselves, about others, that keep us replaying the same coding, right? Which is just strengthening. Every time we replay something, we're strengthening the neuronal circuit, the neural networks, the pathways in our brain. And when that happens, you are feeding energy to bloom into your reality. Manifestation is a constant thing, it's happening all of the time. When we talk about practicing manifesting, what we're talking about is learning how to be aware of what it looks like to manifest and taking a more practiced, intentional direction with that so that we can influence our reality in desired ways, in new ways, in expansive ways, rather than the manifestation that we are embedded in and what's the word I want to say? Essentially trained in, socially crafted in, where survival mode is accidentally replaying and then leading to trauma reenactments. What you expect, your brain plays out, and it will create energy, vibrational energy. Quantum physics proves this energy that makes it seem as though that has already happened. For example, there are research studies that have had a control group mentally rehearse the flexing of a muscle without moving a muscle, without moving it, just the mental imagery of rehearsing that over 5 minutes of mental rehearsing for 2 weeks at a time, for example, and compared, that's the experimental group, compared to the control group, tangible physical manifestations of that. These people are just mentally rehearsing it. They are not literally doing any physical movement. And the musculature reflects gains as though they were working out. It is producing your reality. It's producing your reality. So that makes complete sense to me that this ability to engage in creation on a higher level that really opens up a world to bloom in ways that are soul aligned, your highest path. And we call it that, the highest path, right? Because you cannot achieve it from being in survival mode where your human mind is in the driver's seat of the vehicle. Your highest self needs to be the one in the driver's seat. And that requires that foundation of a grounded, rooted safety. When you think about this from energy and chakras, your three bottom chakras, the root, sacral, and solar plexus, are known as the forgot the word for it, but like the grounding, primary, earthly safety things. And this is all a smooth system, right? So if you want to expand more in regard to your spiritual health, your intuitive capacities, and living a life where your vibration and your frequency at a baseline level is elevating, it requires that safety, that rooted energy, so that we feel more safe for our energy body, our light body to ascend and fill this auric field, this body, with more unconcentrated, higher self energy to guide you into the life that you deserve to live. We've got to switch out of survival mode and come home to ourselves in this way. Some of the synchronicities that I have been noticing along these lines are the never ending story and I'm currently reading a book called Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Brian Weiss, I think is the name of it. I'll double check later, and if I'm incorrect, I'll put the correct information in my little description box here. But both of those storylines right now are connecting to me in a way where imagination and play from an inner world is a necessary part of creation. If you don't create space, provide safety for our attention to be able to turn to that landscape, rather than constantly being consumed by rehearsal of all the associations that we've gained from the past that take us out of the now moment as we project them all into the future. And then we are just rushing ahead of ourselves, creating realities that are repeating past narratives, loops. Energy goes where your attention flows, right? So if your attention is on that, you're not leaving any room for creation energy. Real manifestation is not sitting and rehearsing against, going against the grain, right? Of this is what I'm used to, this is what I expect to happen, but I'm going to make this dream board of all of these things and just hope and hope and hope and cross my fingers that it happens. You'll see it when you believe it, not I'll believe it when I see it. And that requires the homecoming energy, the clearing of space. We have to sit in stillness to be able to start hearing the inner world. It doesn't come from continuing to be very externally focused, incapable of settling our nervous system to the point that we can sit in the now moment in stillness. And accidentally engaging in manifesting the same way we would with a quota we have to meet for productivity standards set by a boss, right? And so I love that vision of looking at the snake energy in the sacred way of what is there to learn about how we need to release the attachments we have to our own sense of identity. If you're too entrenched and this is who I am, you're limiting yourself. You're limiting yourself. And one of my friends added to that conversation to say, I don't want somebody else to ever say that they fully understand who I am, like ick. And also, I don't want to fully understand who I am in a certain way. I want to leave room to be pleasantly surprised. I want to be free. I want to be free. And that is authenticity. That's more trustworthy than something that is stagnant and in a fixed position, right? I think that's an illusion to look at something in that fixed place of stagnancy and to think, oh, I can trust that. I'm not so sure about that. I think we can look at that in a completely opposite way, depending on where we are in an elevated sense of wholeness, healing, homecoming, and spirituality. And so, if you're in a relationship that doesn't seem to have space for that change, that growth, that evolution, that ascension, and requires you to be a fixed version of who you were when you met this person in order to engender some sense of stability, then I believe you're in an energy where you have been walking in this desert of desperation and you've seen a mirage. You've seen this cactus that we think holds water in it, and it looks stagnant. Don't drink from a stagnant pool of water, right? It looks stagnant, it looks fixed. And so your mind says that thing's not going anywhere. And so you're safe here. You can finally relax and trust that that you're going to be held. That's not a holding, that's an imprisoning. You're going to be poisoned, right? This is coming from the trauma-based associations of the human programming you've experienced. It's coming from attachment wounds. If you're in that dynamic where you're trading freedom for a sense of stability, that's an illusion. That's an illusion. Life is breathing. It's breathing. If it's not breathing, if it's not moving, there's not room for change and fluidity and freedom, then it's dead energy. You're not safe there. Authenticity, trust, freedom, that comes from the homecoming, from the shedding, from the being comfortable with seeing the magnitude of who you really are, of who you really are. This is vibrancy. This is vitality. It's breathing and moving. It's ever changing. And that doesn't need to trigger alarms of change. Ooh, I'm not safe. It can open up doors of limitless possibilities and a taste of the infinite energy that you are made of. And there we can find not only reassurance, but excitement, creation energy. This is the homecoming. This is the shift as we exit this phase of the year of the snake and enter into now what? Question mark, exclamation mark, little confetti emojis.